presence. So we have been on She Talks talking a lot about how to deliver your speeches, how to deliver your talks, but we also need to know how to capture the audience, how to capture the stage, and how to own the stage. And that's what we are going to learn today from Mala. But before we start the session, a little bit about Mala, because every time I get to introduce a Shri Mantran, I get so delighted because all of Shri Mantras are such accomplished women, and it's always a delight to read their bios also. So hold your breath and get to know Mala a little bit more. Mala is a ICF certified executive productivity and mindset coach, a certified human wisdom coach, and best-selling author. She has lived in 9 countries across continents and has a vast exposure to working with people from different cultures and professions. She is also a co-founder and CEO to a luxury retail business. When she realized that she is able to bring a marked transformation in the lives of her clients through her consultancy role, Mala moved to coaching, working with her clients on their presence, poise, and potentiality. Her coaching work brings powerful projection, sophisticated demeanor, and confident composure to her clients, both in their personal and professional life. Nominated as top 10 women in soft skills in the entrepreneur, and with over 16 plus years of experience, Mala has helped people develop inner resolve, grace, and visibility so they live their lives with courage, solidity, and fulfillment. So, without further ado, Mala, let's get hearing from you all about stage presence, because already you've gripped the audience at the start of the session itself. And yes, do let us know a little bit about your journey into stage presence and how you work with your clients actually.
Thank you so much, Roshni, for that really amazing introduction. Every time you get introductions like this, you feel, my God, it's even more up to you, and you're motivated to live up to everything and bring that out in whatever you do. So thank you so much for that. Yes, my own journey, I am in fact going to bring in a lot of my own stories today on incidents I've had, experiences I've had, moments I've had, revelations I've had that has pushed me into one, why I do this, what made me get here, what were my challenges as well. What I would urge you all to do again is do try and keep your cameras on so we can really get the most out of the next hour or so, 90 minutes that we have. Also, it's important that we ask those questions. I am going to give some time at the end of the session where we can ask questions. But what I would encourage you all to do is, if you do have a question, while I am talking about one specific element of presence, please do raise your hands and bring it up, because we're talking about presence. We are about also talking about being present. And sometimes what you can actually discuss, if you have a question, when we're actually in the midst of, brainstorming on something or making certain points, when we address those questions at that time, it gives a different energy to the kind of talk that happens, the questions, the answers, the sort of insights we get. So please don't hesitate at any time to say, you know what, this is what I don't get. How does this happen? But these are my challenges. This is even if you want to share something, thoughts you have, right? So welcome everyone to She Talks. As a people, we love to talk. Even the shyest of us like to talk. And that is because we actually come into existence through our talking, through our expression. If we go back to the time of our ancestors and when we were cave people, for instance, the desire to talk is actually hardwired in us. So why did people need to talk and express themselves? So it started actually as a need to share. Cave people had to share information with their tribe, inform them of, say, certain dangers that are lurking around, certain food supplies that might be there, not be there, animals, dangerous animals that might be around. So there was a need to share and express, and it was mostly done for the sake of survival and life and death situations. Babies They announce and express themselves on arrival. Again, it's a need for survival. I am hungry, I'm in pain. And that's how expression goes back to there was a need for it. Now, as we have continued as a people, I'm saying, as we have continued to inform, share, educate, help, in that we have created bonds, social bonds, bonds in our expressing that bring people together, give a sense of belonging, where then we have looked to understand and be understood. So when we look to being understood and we look to understand, we are trying to find a voice, and we get on this journey of finding our voice. As we find our voice, what happens? We get a taste of it. We get a taste of the power that our voice has. And by voice, I don't mean just our vocal elements, but being able to express. So what we do then is going from simply sharing, educating, informing, telling, to doing more. And what's the more? It's the motivating, the inspiring, the entertaining, the persuading, the convincing, the influencing, the promoting. And that we do through our stories and ideas and thoughts that we speak, we share, and we sort of give out through all our ways of expressing ourselves. Now, in order to persuade, influence, entertain, share, promote, motivate, inspire, we need to be heard and we need to be seen. It's absolutely possible that we may speak and yet not be heard. We may be even present and we may not be seen. So how do we ensure that we are actually, as we speak, that we are being heard? How do I ensure when I'm in a room full of people where I'm present that I'm actually being seen? And then I'm being heard and I'm being trusted with the information that I'm sharing. So how do we ensure that we get into that zone of influence, inspiration, and impact, right? When we go out and give our talks, let's all ask ourselves these questions. And these are questions that we should actually ask ourselves. Number one, do I think my talk is going to be remembered? Is there going to be any recall value on what I'm speaking about? Is there some sort of memorable kind of experience that's going to linger in the mind of the listener or the audience in their busy life and in their busy minds? Am I going to remain? Are they going to tell their friends about it? Are they going to spread the word? Are they going to talk about it? Am I, as a speaker, not just my message, am I as a speaker going to be remembered? Am I making a memorable impression? How is my message, my talk, and me going to be regarded, interpreted, and understood? Why is it that some people just remain in your minds when they speak? They just influence you. And they just have a certain staying power that stays with you. There's a recall you have. We tend to focus a lot on content and knowledge, right? But it's not, it is important, but it's not enough. If it was enough, we would all just take that message, that content, send it on an email, and ask you to read it. So what is it that gets a person to be remembered, their talk to be remembered? Even the most well-written set of ideas, the most well-thought-out, structured content is only brought to life with what? It's brought to life with what the listener receives. And can anyone tell me here, what does the listener receive? The talk is actually brought to life with what the listener receives. What is the listener receiving? Any thoughts? What do you receive? Apart from content, emotions, correct? Yes, Asta, emotions. Values. So, great, Mira. Emotions and values. Energy, Falguni, correct? Yeah. Message, yes. So when we talk about connection, as Preeta is saying now, energy, emotion, where does that come from? Does it come just from your message? What brings that energy, that emotion, that connection? What brings it? What is the listener actually receiving? Yes, Asta, your being. It's receiving you. What the listener's actually receiving is a bit of you. Actually, a whole lot of you. Sorry about this crow. I don't know. We've been having a whole line of crows since 2 days and it hasn't stopped. And it's not like I put any food or anything out there, but they're just at it. All right. So what the listener actually receives is you. The message and the content gathers soul through you as it comes out. That's what you bring. You give that message soul. And what is that you? It's a person. It's Shilpa. It's Roshni. It's Saloni, right? It's the person. That person is your individual presence. That's what it is. Because I could have 2 people in the same room with the same audience, in the same setting, with exactly the same words, exactly the same message to be delivered. But as the receiver is going to receive those messages differently. There'll be something different they take here from one and something different they take from the other. So what's the difference really? It's you, it's your presence. Now, the question we can ask ourselves here is if presence is received by the listener and you are the presence, then is it not necessary for you to actually present yourself in the best possible way if that's what the receiver is receiving? And that's where your influence and impact comes from. It shows a certain kind of professionalism. It shows a certain respect for the audience. It helps you gain attention from the audience, and it gives you, most importantly, a certain kind of staying power, a certain recall. And it's that staying power that we're going to focus on today. So the audience is, in other words, experiencing you because they're perceiving you in a certain way and you're offering them an experience. So when they receive you, what are they actually receiving? It's an experience. So you're speaking, you're being out there, you're talking is actually an experience you're offering them. And that experience is your stage presence. That's your stage presence. But before we go to stage presence, just a minute on presence itself, because I still get a lot of people say, well, what is it? What is presence? I don't know if I believe in it. It's just about how you look, right? So what is it really? Very simply, presence is really how you speak, how you act, and how you appear. It's how, with speaking, it's how you interact in every possible way. In acting, it's how you handle things. Even in the midst of, say, you're doing a TED talk or you're doing any kind of talk, how do you handle yourself in that? How do you act? Which is your etiquette, your behavior, or disruptions, or noise, or laughter, or a difficult audience. How do you act? And then how do you appear? It's not just your look and your clothes and your makeup and your hair. It's how you appear in vibrations. We're all balls of energy. What is your vibe giving out? What is your energy giving out? How do you carry yourself? How do you exude yourself? How do you exude your style? What sense of style do you have? Is there confidence? Is there allure? Is there energy? Is there charisma? Is there charm? So as we speak, act, and appear, we are projecting our presence. Our presence is the experience we offer. The other person, so let me try and put this in this way, and let me know if this is making sense. Okay, and I'd like you all to think about this. If you are being received by the other person, you're offering them a certain experience and they are the one receiving it, then is not your presence in the eye of the beholder? Because it's the way they're seeing it. It's their experience. They are receiving it, right? And they see it through their eyes. So it's there. experience. It's in the eye of the beholder. The question we can ask ourselves right now is, how I see myself may not necessarily be how somebody else sees me. So how I see myself is not necessarily how someone else may perceive me or is perceiving me. How then am I able to give out that presence, be that influence that I intend to be, if I don't know for sure how I am being perceived? When we're being perceived by others, what does that really mean? It's how they think of us, how they sense us, how they regard us, follow us, notice us, how they see us in general, right? How we appeal to their senses. And often, I don't know if any of you have gone through this, but I certainly have. And please give me a hands up or a yes or whatever, if you all have gone through this. I've gone through experiences in my life when I've been quite surprised that how someone has seen me, and it's not the way I thought I see myself. And I've been quite surprised, but is this how you see me? That's not who I am. I'm surprised that you see me this way. And has that happened to any of you here? Yeah. So
wait, I have a good one. This is monsters and colors.
Sorry, is that someone trying to speak, or is that just some noise? Okay. Right. So this is a question we need to ask ourselves. All right. In fact, it's often that how we see ourselves is often at odds with how someone else sees us. Okay. And it's a very easy mark to miss, especially when we talk, let's just talk about leadership presence here for a minute. When we talk about leadership presence, there's a gap between how a leader thinks he's being perceived versus how he's actually being perceived. So then that leader is not able to exude that kind of leadership presence. And that's when we say there's low presence. There isn't a presence, because everyone has some kind of presence. It's a low presence. So they're not able to exude that kind of leadership presence that they want to give out. Okay, so how you see yourself and how are you being perceived, this has to be filled in with the essence, the awareness of the essence of your presence, and to cultivate certain skills. And that's what we're going to do today. Stage presence. How is stage presence different to presence? Can anyone give me an answer here? How is stage presence different to presence? Any thoughts?
I actually think in stage presence, one needs to amplify who they are being and the character they're portraying, while in presence, you're just being you in such a manner that it doesn't encroach on the other. In fact, it makes them feel safe. It makes them feel warm and welcome. So it's actually quite the opposite as I understand it to be.
So, yes, you are correct. However, you're absolutely correct when you say that stage presence has certain elements of presence in it. Presence is just your being, right? And what is our being? It is how we speak, how we act, and how we appear, right? It's the things we do. That's our presence. That's my being over here. Your presence can be felt even just through your energy, your being in the room. We are very often with people in the room when we say, I can feel the presence of this person. They may not be saying anything. I can feel their presence. So it's your being, correct? However, very often, when we are always creatures that want to do something, and we're always in action. When we move from presence to stage presence, how did the word stage come about? What is being on stage really? What started on stage? Entertainment, right? Plays, dramas, entertainment. So it is when we go from presence to stage presence, it's more about your performance. Okay, it's about how you're going to be there. It's a little more amplified, and you're absolutely correct when you said that. You used that word. It's actually more amplified. So it's correct, the characteristics of your presence, because you cannot take away from who you are. So it's your presence with added elements to enhance those characteristics for the sake of performance. Is that clear? Does that make sense? So far, so good? Yeah? Okay. So stage presence. We want it to be memorable, captivating, charismatic, alluring, appealing. Stage presence is really about holding attention, right? So what do we want to do when we have stage presence? We want to captivate when we speak. We want to capture that attention. After we capture it, we want to hold on to it. We want to command it and we want to direct it. So how do we do that? We look at 4 elements, which is your visual, your vocal, your verbal, and your vibrational. So if I have to break that down a little bit more, what I would say is it's your sharp appearance with the definiteness of your movement, your power of voice, your articulation of your words, the energy of your warmth, and the confidence and the enthusiasm of the energy that you give out. Stage presence is also, it's not just when you're at a TED talk or at an auditorium giving a talk. Stage presence is when you get up to speak in a room full of people. Stage presence is when you're giving a speech at a wedding. Stage presence is also in a boardroom full of people, right? What presence is not, it's important to know, is that it's not about being loud. It's not about bragging. It's not about intimidating. It's not about dominating. It's not fake. It's not pretentious. It's not uniform. It is authentic. So think about someone that you think has great presence, and think about one more person then. Think about 2 or 3 people who have great presence according to you and see how different they are. So for me, if we take some names like, say, Tony Robbins, Oprah Winfrey, Elon Musk, say, or Dalai Lama, Obama. Okay, so Malini, you've put in Oprah. How is the presence that Oprah has different to the presence of Obama, say? It's quite different, right? Obama, there's a little more structure, a little more, Oprah's more drama, and Obama's a little more like proper, right? Given their roles. So your presence has to be unique to who you are, right? What we're going to do now is we're going to move from the sort of the vocal, visual, verbal, vibration to bring this out to more light. I'm going to touch on 4 bodies of presence. Your inner or your spiritual presence, your emotional presence, your mental presence, and your physical. In the physical, we will talk a little bit about the verbal. Any questions so far? Any thoughts going through your mind with what we have what we've done right now is established stage presence and presence, how we are being perceived, how we see ourselves, where the gap could be, what presence actually is, why it is needed, and what impact it can have. Yes, Malini, you have a question?
Yes, I do have a question. When you said that it is an original presence, the stage presence. What I feel over here is that a person might not be that strong in their real life, what they are portraying on the stage. So,
yeah. Very, very good question. That's your question, right? That basically yes, it's a very good question, Malini, and thank you for asking that, because that's what we're going to start with actually. And this is so important, and you brought it out at the right time, because you can't go there till you address this. And this is why we're starting with, so I'm going to go through the inner and spiritual, the heightened inner awareness presence right now. And Malini, then you can tell me if this sort of addresses your question more. All right. So let's talk about the inner spiritual. See, I call it the inner. I like to call it spiritual. You can call it what you like. Basically what it is inner, could be spiritual. It's a heightened inner awareness. It's a level of comfort and confidence that you actually have with yourself. This is just about you. It's about you knowing what you are so you can exude it on the outside. We don't know what we exude on the outside if we don't know what's on in the inside. So it's your heart and gut knowledge that comes from a deep sort of trusting space. And through that trusting space, you gain clarity. You go into this reflection, asking yourself questions. And I have a list of questions which I will share with you. But I honestly feel in situations like this, and what's worked for me is when I come up with my own questions. And we're coaches here. We know the questions that work for us. So what are the questions that are going to work for you? Because I will give you a set of questions, but you are very likely to come up with better questions that are more suited to your situation, your current state right now. So this inner awareness that we get gives us a certain clarity. And that clarity gives us a certain kind of truth. I think I know a little bit more about who I am, right? That truth allows for a little more transparency. That transparency allows you not to send mixed messages then. It's transparent, right? That transparency, when you exude it on the outside, invites trust. And when you invite trust from others, they tend to open themselves up more to the influence that you are trying to generate. And with that, you get more staying power and more relatability. There's an inner stability when we say, oh, there's a quiet confidence, or this person, sometimes that whole thing of, I think I've arrived, and someone looks like she's arrived. It's that inner stability, that level of quiet confidence that comes in from within. And that inner stability from the inner sense finds its way to the outer. And that's the quiet confidence. So some of the questions I ask is, what about this feels right for you? What about this is right for you? And this could be even as you're going into one project or one assignment or one talk. You really want to do that TED talk. These are the questions that allows you to touch base a little bit more with yourself. What about this feels right for you? What about this is right for you? What about this makes you the right person for it and not someone else? What about this matters to you? And if it is right for you, then which part of me do I need to bring out to show that uniqueness, if this is right for me? How do I bring that into being? Nothing is more energizing and attracts more attention or as much attention than a speaker who really knows with all their might and all their heart that this is right for me. And that energy overcomes any kind of weak, if I may call it, stage presence that one may have. So look at this inner presence, some sort of like a grounding exercise, when we do grounding, and find ourselves and connect that inner presence to an outer self-assurance. This gives you solidity, substance, and some kind of a standing with yourself. Malini, does this help at all? Does this help you?
Yes, it does. And I completely agree with the last part which you just shared. And to that, I would like to add something.
Sure.
That it also it also shows the capability of the person who is the presenter on the stage, or who is playing on the stage, the capability of being impervious to the other spheres of life, the roles they are playing.
Yeah, can you elaborate on that a little bit more, the last bit?
Absolutely. What happens here is that in one sphere of my life, I am a mother, and in the other sphere, I am a coach.
Yeah.
And maybe in the third sphere, I am playing the presenter on the stage.
Right.
So I have my own strengths and weaknesses in each and every sphere. So that is what connected the dots in the last part you just said.
Right.
And how I added to the imperviousness is that now when I'm the presenter on the stage, I am completely impervious to the weaknesses my other roles have.
Yeah.
And I have picked up the strength, and it has added value to my being a presenter on the stage.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you for sharing that, Malini. And it's very well said. And in fact, I'm going to be adding a few more things as we go through emotional and mental presence, which will in fact further aid a person in being impervious, or really just focusing on the moment and saying, this is what is my strength right now. This is what feels right to me. This is how I'm going to exude my presence right now. So thank you for sharing that. I'm being a little mindful of the time also as well, because we have lots to talk about. I'm going to move now on to emotional presence. All right. So now we've got that sort of level of comfort and confidence that I said starts with your inner self. Now we're going to look at how we can have that level of comfort and confidence with the outer people, with people outside. How are you going to connect with people? We have sort of, gone through that inner awareness, that inner stability. How are we going to now have outward expression? How are we going to bring an emotional engagement and an emotional involvement? Which means, how are we going to hold, present, and manage our emotions? And here I'm going to give you 3 specific things that I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about capacity, connection, and composure. It's the capacity to feel. With connection, it's the ability to connect, to present your emotions with the ability to connect, and composure to manage, or composure to control. So let's start with the capacity to feel. We try so hard to mask our emotions. We are actually nothing without our emotions. And then we think, we say we can't manage our emotions. I can't handle my emotions. My emotions are all over the place. How can we possibly handle and manage our emotions when we're trying so hard to mask them? And how do we even have the energy to manage our emotions when all our energy goes into hiding them? So a place to start is really to accept, acknowledge, honor, and respect the emotions you have, no matter what they are. There's no being ashamed of emotions. It is only when we accept, acknowledge, honor, and respect are we then able to deal with it. And if we say that emotion is energy in motion, then we know that when we walk into a room, that energy is going to walk in with us, whether we like it or not. So then it becomes the feelings with which we interact with people, the feelings with which we present ourselves to other people, and then there's an impact thereon. So that is the capacity to feel. Do we have the capacity to feel? Let's move on to connection. Can I present my emotions in a way that I'm able to connect and engage? So we talked earlier about inner presence, which is speaking from the heart, getting your inner awareness out. Heart and gut knowledge is what I called it. Can we now speak that heart and gut knowledge and speak to somebody else's heart and gut knowledge? So we're not talking to brains right now. We're talking to people's hearts and guts. I'm speaking my heart and gut to somebody's heart and gut. So it's all about emotions and how we're going to express it. There's a certain vulnerability that comes in here, and there's nothing more exciting and real to hear than the honest truth. It invites a certain kind of trust, relatability. I understand you, I hear you, I'm open to you as well. We don't need to be so embarrassed about our feelings. I don't know if Subha, you're on this, but do you remember we did something together where I think, who was the CEO? I don't know if Subha, if you can hear me and if you're on, but I did see you earlier. We had, when we worked together, we showed a video of, I think it was a CEO of one of the Marriott group of hotels, and Sorensen, if I'm correct. And it was in the middle of the pandemic, and he was in this video and talking about layoffs and bad business, really no work, no business, real bad times. And he was going through cancer. and how it just moved people to a different level of action. So that being open and relating and showing a bit of who you are allows that involvement and engagement to come in. It shortens the distance and the proximity between you and someone else. So you put your guards down, someone else puts their guards down, there's human connection, and they hear you. You're transmitting and transferring your emotions onto them, and they back to you. That's the connection. The composure. Now, where composure is concerned, I can go on and on and on. So I'm going to just say, in this context of stage presence, things happen. Technology goes wrong. There are difficult situations, mishaps happen. I've gone blank. I don't know what to say. I've suddenly something's popped up on my screen that's throwing me off. How do I have the composure to handle these mishaps? So, a couple of things. Panic reduces power. What are we talking about? Powerful stage presence. Panic reduces power. Now, you may start your session with a great sense of power, strong presence, you're being the influence you want to be, and then suddenly something happens and you get all frazzled and hassled. Your presence loses power in just a few seconds. You go from a powerful presence to a weaker presence in just a few seconds. And this comes across in how you speak, how you act, and how you appear. People often don't notice much of what has gone wrong. What they do notice is us announcing it in some way through our speaking, acting, and how we are getting sort of agitated, or we have some sort of level of discomfort. So people often don't notice. And even if they notice, people understand. You know, we've all seen clips of things going wrong and people understand. It sort of actually loosens up the audience. But we're so like, no, my presence has to be right. I can't be wrong. What's going to happen? The technology, something's gone off. This has gone off. The mic's gone off. People understand. So how do we hold the composure? I'll give you two of my personal things that help me hold composure. And let me know again if you resonate with this, because composure is a topic by itself. First of all, of course, is the usual: accept it, breathe, pause, and shift the focus. These are my 4 things: accept, breathe, pause, shift the focus, right? When we talk about shifting the focus, I have learned to compartmentalize, and I ask a lot of people to do this, and it's actually a muscle you build. Just last week, I remember I was actually giving a talk. It was a webinar, and it was just literally, I was in the zone 15 minutes before, I was sitting there, and 10 minutes before, something popped up on my phone, and it really bothered me. It just threw me. It was something that it didn't need immediate action, but emotionally it threw me off. And I have a way now. What I do is for me, what helps is I always keep a pen and paper. Even when I sleep, I keep a pen and paper next to me. I write down that one word that will explain what this whole thing is about. And then I've sort of parked it. I've parked it. And now from paper, I've gone to mind where I can actually park it. I understand this is terrible. I need to address this. I know, but right now I take a part of my brain and I park it in my brain. Now that allows me to have composure. And because I get that composure, I'm able to shift my focus to what do I actually want to achieve. So I'm in a meeting or I'm at a talk and something really goes wrong. What do I think? I think 2 things. 1, I really want to achieve what I want to achieve. And if I lose control right now and I lose my balance right now, I'm not going to be able to achieve that. So it's a slight bit of maybe selfishness that comes in, or really wanting to stick to your guns and say, no, I want to achieve this. And the best way I can do this is by being composed. Because when I lose that composure, I'm going to lose control. I don't want to lose control. And the second reason is I do not want to look weak. I've done so much to build a powerful presence. If I go weak now, I'm not going to achieve successfully what I set out to achieve. How often we've reacted and then regretted, if only I'd handled this a little differently, right? So the show must keep going on and we keep going. Any thoughts about emotional presence? One thing to sort of also say, so please come in with your thoughts. I'm going a little fast right now, but please come in with any of your thoughts, questions, sharings that you want to come in with right now. A client of mine, actually not a client, we were doing some coaching with some peer coaching with somebody else, and they said to me something that was quite interesting. They said to me, I'm very confident now about my mistakes. And that just stuck with me. There was a lightheartedness and a less of a self-critique, inner critique. There was a more forgivingness that came in. There was a lightheartedness in those mistakes. It's not that, okay, I'm fine, I'm just going to go around making mistakes now. But there was like, all right, it's okay. It's human. And that's what connects us. And also to handle ourselves. Yeah, Deepika?
Sorry, I'm just unmuting myself. So question really, Mala, is the fact that, for an experienced person, who's been into the field, and probably some of us here, it's all right to look at your emotions and, have a control. But one of the emotions which comes for at least a newbie is really about the nervousness, which also overtakes, which is a kind of an emotion. How do you then talk about these 2-3 aspects for a new person who's just about trying to get there? We know that through practice we've got there, we've made our mistakes and got there, but now what about that person whom we are trying to coach or mentor?
So, well, Deepika, when you talk about nervousness, are you talking about stage nervousness, or being out there in front of people speaking nervousness, or nervousness based on that comes from a past?
Stage nervousness. More about stage here. There could be many aspects to it, but stage nervousness. A lot of people who get into public speaking initially do have problems with this.
Yeah, so thank you for asking that, Deepika. I actually did intend to actually speak about this for a few minutes at the end if we had time, and I don't see us having time for that. So I'm just going to quickly actually tell you a few things. So first of all, it's to accept, number one, that it's absolutely okay to be nervous. The thing is, it's exactly what I just said about emotions. When you try so hard to fight something, it stares us more in the face because we're thinking about it. Don't think about an orange, you're thinking about an orange, right? So it is about actually saying, I am nervous, announce it. Not announce it on stage, because on stage we should never apologize and we should never say, I'm sorry, but I'm sorry, I'm nervous. We can't do that. But it's okay for you to admit to yourself, I am nervous. Admit to a friend, admit to the person before you are going on that I am nervous, right? First of all is the admittance. Secondly, there are a lot of tips and tricks and tools that we put into place. And I have in the past worked with, when I did my fashion business, I've worked with certain celebrities because we used to dress them in certain things. And of course, then they would talk to us about their stage fright when they go on. And these are celebrities who've really been on stage many, many times. It still happens to them. You build up and you get into that zone before. Now, the one or two things will I still say, I will say here, Deepika, and I hope that helps you, is nervousness comes a lot from anticipation. It's the countdown. It's the countdown to like, okay, we're in a room full of people and we're going around the room to speak. And I know my turn is coming. And then it's the next person, and then they're going to go to the next person. And I'm 3 people away, I'm 2 people away, I'm 1 people away, I'm next. Anticipation is it's like a rocket launch, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So 1 is, yes, Preeta, humor for sure. It's that anticipation. It's not thinking about it. I had once asked a spiritual leader that what causes nervousness, even when you want to put your hand up. And she said to me, and I'm not saying this is by any means the answer here, but I'm giving it in case it helps or gives you any insights. She said to me, Mala, it's inverted ego. And at that time, I was really like, what? I didn't like the answer. But when I thought about it.
Can you repeat that? What is it? Sorry, I missed.
The spiritual leader said to me, it was in Nigeria. She said to me, it's inverted ego. Inverted ego.
Inverted ego.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I took it quite like, oh, and I asked that in a room full of people. So I was like this was like, I think I must have been 21, 22. But the thing is like, the anticipation is, I'm thinking about myself. The focus is on me. I'm going on. I'm going to speak. I'm going to do this. When you shift the focus to the outside, which when you stop anticipating, it will help you. It'll help you because you're only listening fully to the person who is speaking. And you're more likely to then, when you start speaking, address what was last said, carry on, you will, what do they call it? Sort of when you sort of swiftly move from there to and take it over into your realm of speaking. So it is anticipation. And then of course there's humor, as Preeta said, movement really helps. So I know a lot of people, particularly this person that I was talking about just now, who actually does jumping jacks just before they go on. There's something about movement before you go on that, that I think it's the rush of blood or something that energizes you. So that is, it's important to be busy before you go on. Too much delving and thinking and overthinking actually slows you down. So yes, you can get into thinking if you're doing something positive, like a bit of visualization, affirmation, or meditation. Does that help, Deepika? Just
Thank
to
you.
sort of,
Thank
yeah.
you. Thank you.
So now, again, this is also carry on, Deepika. We're going now into mental presence. So how do we handle nerves? How do we handle even, as we said, that emotion with a presence of mind? So here I'm going to talk about two things: commitment and contribution. Mental presence is really, I'm here with you and I'm here to give to you. So I'm here with you, I'm committed, and I'm here to contribute, to give. Two things I want you to think about, and this is a bit of not an easy one to get into because there's a very subtle difference. But if I say to you, stay out of your own head so you can be fully with the audience during the performance. At the same time, I'm going to tell you, have presence of mind. So you're there enough to respond, pivot, change course if need be. It's a subtle art. So when I say stay out of your own head, which means don't overthink, don't reflect, don't analyze, don't assess, don't evaluate, don't reflect during performance. It dilutes your performance and your presence. So stay out of your own head, yet be in there enough to have a presence of mind so that you need to act, you need to change the topic, you need to, like, okay, for instance, like I've realized now we're running a bit, I've got so much I want to share with you all today that I need to go a little. That's me having a slight presence of mind on the time. There are two Harvard psychologists, William Killingsworth and Daniel Gilbert, their names. They say we spend 47% of our time thinking of something other than what we're actually doing. 47%. Even when we're on a phone call with people, has it ever happened to you? You're on a phone to someone and you say, you can't see the person, you can't see if they're listening, but you hear, you sense they're not with you, and you say, are you there? Are you listening? What is it that tells us that they're not listening? It's a distraction. Now, especially in today's day and age and with media seduction, we are so attracted to distraction, all of us. We're so attracted to distraction. Yet, it's the absence of distraction in a person that is so attractive. When we do some of the core competencies, and as coaches, we know this, we say, be very careful you don't get into a relationship which is now getting uncomfortable from the sense, I'm not saying it's got to be sexual or physical, but you can sense when there's a certain relationship that's coming in between a coach and a coachee, which is a little bit more than just, I'm here to coach you and I'm with you. It's getting a little too comfortable. There's a little dependency that's coming in. There's a little bit of a relationship that's not just a coaching relationship. And what do they say? Stop the coaching. It's not right. And why do you think that happens? Because how many people are really there in our lives today to say, I'm here for you fully, and I'm here just to give you my time and listen to you. It's so attractive. It's so attractive. It's charming. And that's where our charisma comes from. It's a natural energy. It's a fluid sort of energy that's flowing. It's a freeing of the mind so that I'm fully engaged. Now, what happens to my mind when it's free? When my mind is free, I'm fully engaged. For the sake of now, for the sake of the sheer enjoyment of speaking to you and interacting with you. So it's about not trying too hard, which is the freeing part, the liberating, not the overthinking, the analyzing. And it's to do with enjoying yourself enough that you have the presence of mind to be there. It's a respecting and honoring of your own presence, right? So that is the difference. And this, even virtually, it's so easy to forget that we're being watched when our cameras are on. Even when we see two people host a certain webinar and one person speaks for 20 minutes, and when it's time for the second person to speak, they sort of slouch, relax, they look, and they'll sort of call out to someone. And it's so easy because we're so easily distracted from anything that we do. Any minute we have, we'll just grab our phones. Contribution, talking about contribution, it is about really your content. What value are you giving? And your awareness, your command and control. It's not enough to just go in with value. You've got to command it, direct it, and control it. In other words, you're on a journey. Your audience is on that journey with you. Take your audience with you on that journey. Show them where you're going. Let them have a clear layout about where they're going, where it's taking them via your content, your structure, your flow, your contribution. This will show up in your credibility, your knowledge, right? And what you're giving. So it's what you say, how you say, to who you say, why is it mattering to them? It's all that. All that can be maximized in how you bring this out. And most importantly, you bring this out through your physical presence. And now I will move to physical presence. I've not shared any slides. I will do that right in the end if you want to take any screenshots of some of the pointers that I put out. But I think right now, if you all are okay, I'm happy to just talk to you like this. Okay. Any questions on the mental presence, presence of mind, yet staying out of your own head? Any confusion there? Any thoughts you'd like to share? All good? I hope everyone's still with me.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Physical presence. What is physical presence? Okay. How many of you here believe in first impressions? Just give me a hands up. How many of you believe? Asta? I see that, I do see that not everyone's rushing. Right? How many of you here believe in first impressions? Hemani. First impressions. Okay, Preetha's raising her hand. When I first started my training, one of my first assignments I had many years back, I did a training session on first impressions with Deloitte, and it was 40 men in a room, and it was before the pandemic, so it was on site. There were 40 men in a room, and the topic was, do first impressions matter, or first impressions matter, or something, or first impressions. It was all about how you appear. And I started with, and I divided the room into two, 20 people. And I said, you say, I believe in first impressions. You say, I do not believe in first impressions do not matter. First impressions matter. And we had, like, literally, I had slotted about 20 minutes for this. We went on for half an hour because there were such amazing arguments for this. Now, first impressions, what they do is it sets the bar and it sets the expectation. If I'm doing an interview and I have someone walking in and they're late, their clothes are creased, they're not able, they're walking in rushed, slouched, I am making some judgment. Now, I know we all say we don't like judgment. You should not judge. I myself believe one should not judge. But why do we even have the saying, don't judge a book by its cover? Because we do. Because we do judge, we have that saying in the first place. So judgment isn't all bad. It's your judgment, it's your perception, right? And we make that perception, we make that judgment, whether we like it or not. Now, your first impression on stage, let's talk about your first impression on stage. We say so much. How are you going to start? What's your first few words? What's your opening? When we talk about, delivering talks, what's your opening going to be? Your opening is, yes, it's important. But what's important is way before that, when your first impression starts, and it starts way before, is the moment you take your stage, and actually it starts backstage. So how you are in backstage, a minute before you go on, 30 seconds before you go on, 20 seconds and 10 seconds is how you actually walk in. So how you're going to walk in, that sets the tone for your first impression, which is then going to set the tone of how you command attention and connect with people before you've even said one word. So when are you going to walk in? And when I say when, it's even when the clapping is going on. Okay, Falguni Parekh is going to come in, or Shilpa is going to come in. How late, how soon are you going to walk on? How do you walk in? How do you carry yourself? Where do you walk in from? Where do you walk to? How do you land and plant yourself in that spot? And how do you look all along? So it's purposeful, it's confident, it's effortless, and it's seamless. That's how it should be. It shows you where I am going. I know where I'm going. There's a physical certainty, and that will come out as an emotional and mental certainty, which shows I am competent, I'm able, I'm confident. I know what I'm going to say today. I am very happy to be here, and I'm energized to meet you all. That's what it says. If you're hesitant, it creates some kind of uncertainty not only in your mind, because our body, whatever we do, does affect the mind, right? Our movements. It also creates uncertainty in the audience mind because they've judged you already. So something that helps me, I had a colleague and, a guy, Australian guy, a fellow coach named Ozzy, who always said to me, where you're running to, where are you running from? And he would talk about being in the rat race. And he said, this world is a rat race. And he always said to me, Mala, can you be in the rat race without being a rat? And I have used that phrase, and that helps me pace myself in everything that I do, every little thing that I do, every big thing that I do. Because that race, that rush, which is so like, this, we were talking about distraction and competition and wanting to be everywhere. It actually is nerves playing up. And that nerves come out on the outside. So I say to myself, okay, I'm in the rat race. Do I need to be the rat? Okay, now calm down, Mala. All right. And see how you can show yourself. So it gives you time to settle the nerves. So pace yourself. So that's your first impression. It's your look, your posture, your smile, your eyes, the pace of your walk. Are you walking too fast or too slow? What we just spoke about, the stride, the position. Suppose you're walking in straight, all right, and your audience is to the right. You walk in from the left of the audience. Some people walk straight. Some people are walking straight, but they're looking right. And some people are walking, but they have this slight turn where they're looking right, which is the right way to do it, because it shows some sort of welcome. I'm walking this way. I'm not awkward where I'm doing this. I am turning and I'm sort of walking towards you. So it's how you walk in, the position that you have. And that's when you arrive, you've already set an impression. And with that, you have a certain energy. That energy is picked up by the audience because energy is contagious. In your eyes, I'm not going to go too much into eyes. It's how you are skimming the room as you walk in, your facial expressions, natural and warm. People like to see confidence. When you see confidence, we tend to mirror. We talk a lot about mirroring. And when you see someone slouching, putting their feet up, we tend to do the same. So if I see confidence in you, I'm going to also sort of feel a little confident. Even when I'm not confident, I might start feeling a little more confident. It brings out a certain level of confidence. And how do people feel when they're confident? They feel great. You want people to feel great when they're going to come in and listen to your talk. So once you've done that, you land your entrance. You stand firm and front and center. Say, I'm here to speak to you. Let's connect, let's speak. All right? You stay grounded, you're conscious of your movements. A lot of people, and I'm literally guilty of this, swaying and I love standing on one leg. And I've had to really, even today, I struggle with it. Stand with your feet hip distance apart, balance yourself. So there's no back and forth. There's no nervous pacing that happens. And don't constantly move around, but do move around. Now, I know when we go in for TED Talks and certain talks, we're confined, right? You have a certain area, you have that carpet, but there's still movement you can do. It's not about running to the other end of the room. It's about moving with a certain purpose in line with what you're saying. So it's even a little shift, a turn, a shift, a look there, hand movements, all that is still movement. But there's a difference in movement that's complementary and goes with your talk. And there's different in annoying moves and fidgeting that we're not even aware of. So over here, it's awareness. I recently had a client who really could not sit up straight, still working with him. And finally, what I did to him is I told him to set an alarm every half an hour. I literally told him in the end, I want you to set an alarm every half an hour, just a little ping on your phone. And when that rings, you're going to sit up. And it took I think it took about 6 weeks. And, I had to be at it with him, of course, not during during his working hours. But I said, this is how it's now come in. So this is something we just need awareness and practice with. When you're on stage, use the stage. We say own the room, own the room. How are you going to own the room? You don't own the room by sitting like this. You own the room by expanding. It's about expanding. We want to expand our talk. We want to expand ourselves. We want to expand our presence. So how we use the stage shows either you're confident or you're timid. How do you feel about your own competence and your own talk? So bold body language, gestures, but it should be natural, easy, spare, powerful, and clean. Yes, you own the room by expanding, Roshni. Plus, what does your movement do? Handles your nerves, breaks monotony. The audience follows you. It keeps the brains of the audience active. They're looking at you, but it's got to be engaging. It's got to be not distracting. It keeps the performance alive and it keeps you going, right? As you move, this is really important. Move purposefully. And what I mean is embody your speech. So in your movements, pair elements of your movements with the emotions, the matter, the flow of the story, even your vocal elements and your words. So tie in your movements with what you're saying. So if I have a strong point and emotion, I need to show that with strong body language. Otherwise, it's going to lose its impact. A lot of it loses impact because we don't tie in all aspects. And that's why today, I know, it's a lot we're doing in 90 minutes, but I didn't want to leave out anything because all this ties in together. The emotions, the mental, the physical, the words, the vocal, all of it has to come together for that powerful presence. But enough so it's not a distraction. Right? And if you're even confined to one place, like you are on certain areas, like if you are in a small room, you don't want big sweeping movements. It's going to look wrong. So you've got to match it even to the room you're in, to the space you're given. And then, there are certain things about using your stage positions to your advantage. So normally what happens when you're front and center, this is when I tell you my personal story. This is what the crux of the matter. This is what's important. Normally what happens from the left of the audience, the opening, the crux of the matter, and then the final. But we don't have to work it that way. It's when there's a flow. And that can happen not corners of the room, but just within a certain space. So sometimes you'll see speakers, every time they come a step forward and to the center, they're training their audience. The audience by now realizes something important Anu's going to say, or Asta's going to say, or Surbi's going to say, because they've come front and forward, which helps your delivery. It gets the audience to do a little bit of their own thinking for themselves. And then you just literally move with the audience. You're training them. Stage positions to your advantage. And even in when you're practicing, I do want to do now, we've got about 10 minutes left. I do want to share my screen with you. Just very quickly, I'm going to talk about clothes. I'm not going to give it much time because it's really, I'm sure it's what you already know, but I want to tell you a story about the emotion of clothing. So my daughter's mother-in-law lives in London, and she's the 60-year-old, fun, wild, amazing, full of life and bounce. She loves to sing, she loves to dance, Punjabi woman. Okay. And she works for British Airways in London in customer services. Now she's got this energy that is so, and she dresses really cool, and she's 60, but she's really full of life. She runs marathons, she does all this stuff. Now, when she puts on her British Airways uniform, something happens. There's an emotion, there's this authority that comes. It boosts her job role. And she performs. You can see the side of her. And I tell her, Kitty, how do I see the switch? If I'm taking a flight, she makes sure she's there sometimes if I'm on British Airways. And I say, what's this you? That's you that I see. It's still fundamentally her. But there's something that our clothes do to us. So wear what you feel good in. Wear what you feel confident in. Wear what's appropriate for the role. Dress the part. It's giving respect to the nature of the event. It's aligning with what you're going to say and what you're saying. Align it with who you speak to, where you're speaking. It should not be a distraction. It should be apt for that role. Comfort, I believe a lot in comfort, because if you're not comfortable, it's going to show. I'm going to be tugging and pulling. Transparency of fabric, especially when you're on stage. I had a really embarrassing incident, which I'm going to tell you. I was in the south of France attending a wedding, a friend's child's wedding, and I had an emerald green dress, and it was a stretch fabric like Lycra, but it was double light. Now, I didn't want to wear a black strapless bra under it. It was like off the shoulder. White would definitely not work. Black was looking like, when I looked in the mirror, it wasn't looking right. I always think that flesh-colored bras are one of the safest. So I wore a flesh-colored bra. And then I was horrified, embarrassed, and gosh, wanted to dive under the table when I saw those pictures, because in every picture where I was there, you could see these two sort of highlighted balls of, like, I don't know what, illuminated, lit kind of, my breasts. And I just thought, how the hell did that happen? How did that happen? And my flesh-colored bra was still too light. And I didn't check although it was not transparent, the lighting just didn't do anything. It literally messed me up. So it's important to really look at the transparency of your fabrics and what they do. Of course, being groomed is important. No loose collars, loose threads. And finally, it's like, it should be your style. It really has to be your style. Where's your comfort? What suits your body type? If jacket doesn't work for you, like jackets don't work for me, I don't wear jackets. I don't feel it's me, even though they say wear a jacket. So I find other things. I find a looser flowing jacket because that's more my style. And that's your wardrobe. Your vocal presence, I know you had a session last month where our own dear Rashmi spoke about the vocal elements. So I'm not going to go into that because she really is the expert there. But it's important to note strong voice. When you have a strong voice, it sort of conveys authority, credibility, and confidence, no doubt. But what it does, it actually keeps you from speaking too fast and mumbling. Volume, check that people at the end of the room can hear you. Keep the right kind of pace and, the right kind of pitch. A nice way, when we're very, very high pitched, it's after a while, when you're speaking for a long time, it can get a bit like, it's not very pleasant. So one way to find a natural pitch is to take a deep breath in. And as you exhale, you say anything, like take a deep breath in, and then as you exhale, you say hello. You will always find that, because you cannot be high pitched when you exhale. That's your natural pitch. High pitch also shows nervousness. And of course, let the tone match your message and enjoy, because you can hear a smile in a voice. You can hear enjoyment in a voice. I recently arranged a wedding for my nephew in Bombay last month, actually. And my niece went to give a speech. And she's this really petite, tiny, beautiful girl who always says, Masi, I don't have confidence. And, and she's like this. And she's 30 years old. They were like 6 speeches. She was outstanding. And I was thinking, what is it that made her speech so wow? It's because it was like she was having a conversation. So today, even very high profile speeches and serious, important topics are nowadays, they say, try and be a little more conversational in your speech. The listeners respond better. It's like, it's instead of saying I'm here to give a talk, it's like, I'm here to have a conversation. It just shows like, you're not talking from up there. I'm here to have a conversation. Verbal presence is the very last, and then we can have about 5 minutes for any questions, and I'll quickly share my screen. So verbal is really about articulating your words, making sure you're not slurring, you're saying each word, you're not having too many repeats. When we do creative writing, I know when I did creative writing, I was told to write a paragraph of 100 words, a story, 150 words, which had an opening, a beginning, a middle, and an end. The whole story. And then they came back to me and said, cancel 30 words. And I thought, how am I going to cancel 30 words? I'm going to lose the story. But I did it. There's a lot of words that we use which aren't necessary. So less words, simple words. Again, don't apologize. Sometimes it's polite to say, I'm sorry, but depending where you are and what is the reason, it's better to use words like I regret. It just sounds a little more, it gives you a little more authority. Pausing is very important because it allows you to gather your thoughts, allows the audience to absorb and gather their thoughts and think a little bit. It emphasizes points and stresses on points. And last but not least, be comfortable with silence. It's important to, and as coaches, we all should be. It all depends on how you use that silence. And it shows that we're self-assured enough and confident enough to use that silence for impact, while we don't lose the audience in that silence, but actually we invite them to even more engagement. Any questions? Last but not least, actually, is to have fun. That's the last, to have fun while you're having your talk.
Such an immersive session. I mean, my God, it was amazing. And yeah, all the time I was anticipating, since you talked about anticipation, that yes, my turn will come. Well, I will be put on stage. And all that you have spoken about will be tested on me. I will be scrutinized for same. So I was like anticipating that moment, like the time we used to wait for our turn in Viva exam and practical, because it was a roll call and always waiting for our alphabet to come. So it was quite unnerving. But yeah, you've covered actually everything from inner self to emotional to mental and physical, and I think this is the most holistic way any speaker have talked about stage presence, because people usually talk more about like movement, body movement or vocal, but to combine all of them is amazing. So thank you so much for your time and such valuable insights.